Warm greetings to all of the participants, attendees, and viewers of the 8th International Conference on Second Language Studies. My name is Feruz Akbarov. I come from Uzbekistan, and my topic is teacher education as one of the pillars of language teaching in rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, and here is my short biography, and the highlight of which is that I'm the founder of a newly established English Teachers Association that has been working quite successfully for the past 7 months as a virtual association. And the primary concern and goal of that association has been to closely work and assist rural English teachers in the country and beyond, which is why I found the topic quite close to me and to my interest. A few words about the introduction. As we all know, we're living in the world which is going through different phases and paces of globalization, which is why today's topic may be even more critical in a sense that the pace of development and progress is not quite the same. It's quite diverse across the regions, and especially put into the educational context in the rural areas where things are falling far greater behind from what has been going on in the urban areas. There are multiple ways in which language teaching, especially English language teaching, can be improved across rural areas in Uzbekistan and elsewhere. There are re-enhancement or retraining programs for rural English teachers that have been operating either successfully or unsuccessfully. Unfortunately, mobile teacher support mechanisms like English speaking nations, also known as ESN, programs facilitated by the US Embassy has not done much in the region to the best of my knowledge or elsewhere across the globe. At least there have been two things that they could really improve or work on. One is that there is lack of coordination throughout the program, because this program has been facilitated by different coaches of different level and education and training and skill set. And obviously, when you are given a training by people whose trainings and level of education may be quite diverse, there might be some gaps and differences in the end. And another problem is there is lack of continuity in such programs, that these programs are organized from time to time, and the results, the effects may not be obvious or palpable. Another recent approach to tackle the ongoing issue was introduced by some higher educational establishments in Uzbekistan. Some senior university teachers were linked to certain rural schools as a mentor, guide, and supervisor to sporadically offer free trainings without any concrete goals in mind or on paper, obviously. And these kind of mechanism, when there is no system of trainings, we cannot think of any effect or result in the foreseeable future. What universities might be lacking is perhaps quite similar to the case of English-speaking nation program, is coordination and continuity of such kind of trainings. And above all, in the case of university, that they lack professionals who can deliver such high-class, high-quality trainings. So those teachers themselves should go through some kind of retraining and re-enhancement programs themselves in the first place, before going on to a bigger stage of taking and assuming a larger role of a facilitator, a coach, a trainer, a mentor, a guide, just to name a few. There's another problem also related to English-speaking nation, as they may not have taken into account the cultural diversity and the mentality of people in Uzbekistan, especially in the rural areas, where dependence is part of the culture, and it's deeply rooted and inculcated into the education system. In a class of 40, 50, and 60 students in rural areas, it would be very hard to imagine in the teaching context how the gradual release of responsibility would work. But this is what the ESN facilitators and coaches have been aggressively and forcibly trying to push to the rural context, so which may not have worked well. And there are some other methods and teaching concepts that they've been trying to incorporate. Well, I guess they may not be taking into account the different scenery, the different culture, the different educational contexts in which one size may not necessarily fit all and all the time. And there are no individual and private mobile teacher support groups to offer such free trainings across the rural areas, because most rural teachers have to either travel to the bigger cities to hundreds of kilometers, or they should have stable internet connection to further enhance their teaching skills remotely. And through this pilot project, as the founder, on December 29th, 2021, I traveled to about 100 kilometers away from the city center of Samarkand city to Katakurgan district and city. And my seminars and trainings and workshops organized in those areas later led to the adoption of a regional decree by the governor of Samarkand region to further bolster the mobile teacher support program in the region, and which is actually going pretty viral, and it's going to be promoted to the entire country in the coming years. Here are some of the questions, quite critical questions, that I'd like you to reflect upon. What do you think? What are the reasons for the lack of stable teacher support mechanisms to function in such rural areas? Why teacher education in rural areas is mostly centralized? Why isn't there a supportive grant for the volunteering initiatives to contribute to the development of rural communities through education? For instance, I have been doing my best as an initiator and a founder of Global Movement and Volunteering Association to support rural English teachers in Uzbekistan and beyond, but my initiatives were not really rewarded, globally or nationally. There are a lot of blocks. There are a lot of hindrances on my way to cope with, like the formalities, the red tape, the paperwork, the registration. Why do we have to complicate things for such initiators and people who would like to be a game changer, rather than trying to clear all sort of obstacles from their path? So this is something I want you to reflect upon, and feel free to get in touch with me after the presentation to either look for the viable solutions or work on similar projects, or collaborate in a national project similar like this. Why not? There are multiple ways in which effective research can and is capable of addressing the crux of teacher education related issues in rural areas. In the future, centralized government systems should delegate some responsibilities to local communities, especially in the sector of education, which cannot be all the time administered centrally. Some national and international NGOs should be involved in the teacher support systems that are decentralized and operate round the clock and all year round, which is what I've been doing with ETA Uzbekistan. In the span of 7 months in and out of Uzbekistan, this organization has done truly unprecedented things. As an unregistered volunteering movement, it was able to unite majority of rural English teachers from around Uzbekistan under the umbrella of camaraderie to collaborate regionally, rurally, nationally, and internationally. During one of my such teacher trainings in the rural areas in the most remote area of Samarkand region, I came across one of the rural English teachers who seemed quite shy and reserved and less communicative. And the same teacher texted me couple of weeks after my training conducted in her respective location, she said that she was able to, spark curiosity in herself and in her students as well, as a teacher, as a learner, and she was engaging more often with her students than ever before. So the extent, the effect of my training was quite tremendous. And this model of ETA Uzbekistan serves as a shining example for those interested and concerned about uplifting the situation related to teacher education in rural areas across the globe. Before dealing with the improvement of language teaching in the underprivileged communities, it is advisable to support the system that works closely with the teacher's continuous professional development, in the absence of which all the strenuous efforts are likely to go to waste. So, in our case, there is no continuous CPD system put in place in the rural areas. TED Master Virtual Speaking Club, virtual team building, teacher Zoom workshop, 20-minute talk with the founder are some of the successful international projects that I initiated through ETA Uzbekistan. And all of these projects are primarily and mainly for the rural English teachers from Uzbekistan and beyond. And in the past 7 months, more than 1,000 English teachers from Uzbekistan have directly benefited through online and offline events facilitated by myself as the founder of ETA Uzbekistan. And more teachers have seen the recorded versions of those trainings shared across my YouTube channel. Since October 12th, 2021, I started holding free virtual workshops for rural English teachers in Uzbekistan, through which hundreds of English teachers from all across the country participated. The scope and pace of centralized teacher support system in Uzbekistan is limited and incoherent. And with that being said, and with that in mind, I tried to contribute to my society and to the world at large. In November 2021, I initiated a brand new virtual workshop, Teachers Workshop, through ETA Uzbekistan to attract foreign English teachers and rural English teachers from Iran, Uzbekistan to collaborate closely throughout the workshop, and especially in the assigned Zoom breakout rooms where they would have to work in small groups with their foreign counterparts, something they have not experienced before, especially I'm talking about the rural English teachers in Uzbekistan. At public schools in Uzbekistan, rural teachers would most likely wait for any administrative training program to be conducted, but rarely can there be any such volunteering initiative to bring the world to the rural areas of Uzbekistan. Given the adversity of COVID-19, global pandemic, similar programs have been indefinitely halted, while being not so coherent and continuous previously. So the entire virtual existence of ETA Uzbekistan was like a silver bullet in times of social distancing and lack of physical movement around the country. And by the way, in the first edition of the Teachers Zoom Workshop, I stepped in as a presenter and a moderator myself, just to motivate the rural English teachers. And in the further following editions, I invited foreigners who were willing to share their know-how and expertise with the rural English teachers from Uzbekistan. This experience was unheard of, in Uzbekistan, and it was first of a kind. Due to the remoteness of rural areas, there's almost no CPD facilities or support systems put in place, not only in Uzbekistan, but also across many countries. Rural English teachers in Uzbekistan do not reflect on previous mistakes, failures, faulty teaching methods, and etc. These virtual programs have been doing their best to assist rural English teachers, just to bring the best out of them, and most importantly, motivate them as a professional English teacher. In rural areas, the very idea of education being used for life is working quite the opposite way. It is the life of those people spend for education while not being able to gain anything palpable or worthwhile out of all those learning efforts. That's why the practicality of rural English classes is limited or even next to zero. Another ominous trend that is prevalent in today's rural English classes of Uzbekistan is that both students and teachers are forced to obtain a language test, reports like IELTS, CEFR, or any other nationally approved ones, as if they were a ticket to a better future. Language tests can only relatively assess one's linguistic competences, but not teaching skills. This is something I've been trying to battle all along. For the past few years, I've been battling with these ominous trends in my country. I was making lots of posts dedicated to these. I was trying to raise awareness across the communities that the end goal of learning language is not just passing any kind of language test, but it's totally different. And we should not, under no circumstances should we assess or evaluate teachers' teaching skills with language test reports, something which has been quite prevalent in the context of language teaching in Uzbekistan. It's a harsh reality. Education for life was the motto among all those virtual programs conducted by myself as the initiator of a number of educational projects. The trainers of ESN program have put an emphasis on short-term courses while not reflecting on the outcome of their training program much. I've even seen little or no change in those rural English teachers during my workshops and seminars in the respective districts, who, by the way, were participants of such training programs in the past. The whole idea of cascading course provided by English-speaking nations is to impact certain teaching tips, strategies, and techniques to regional and rural English teachers in Uzbekistan, which is then followed by the trainees passing on their know-how to more English teachers in their regions. It might have worked in areas, especially in bigger cities, through the gap between rural and urban teachers is remaining wide. Apart from these periodic and disjoint programs, there are no other teacher support mechanisms in the country which could support rural teachers within the enhancement of their skills, knowledge, and expertise. In such places, the classes are highly teacher-centered, grammar-centric, and thus assessment plays a large role, since the entire education system is mostly grade-oriented. Students lack intrinsic motivation in learning English, and their number one priority in doing so can be attributed to parental push, teacher control, and peer pressure. Therefore, it's a mountain to climb for in such rural areas to foster autonomy in language learning students whose demotivation drives from failed systems and poor mechanisms. Rural English teachers do not receive many monetary incentives or big rewards, which might have propelled them to a higher altitude along their career path. Being unrewarded or less rewarded makes nobody thrilled and excited to reward others' efforts. This is another problem why teacher education in rural areas might be quite critical, because apart from not having a continuous CPD program or mechanism put in place, they don't have any reward mechanism as well. Well, there are a few suggestions how these can be improved in the future. Further research is needed to exploring new frontiers, like independently operating virtual associations, providing them room for assisting local teacher education programs sponsored or supported by education organizations to fill the large gap in the rural teacher support system. It's been mentioned several times in the pace of life requires decentralized support mechanisms to closely collaborate, assist, improve, and provide the help needed for the rural English teachers struggling on their own. If a virtual association like ETA Uzbekistan is capable of turning around few things across regional and rural areas of Uzbekistan, and also remotely internationally, then why not research in depth the dynamics of such an organization and its would-be positive effects worldwide. One way to foster educational leadership amongst the educators is sponsoring educational leadership projects that can tap the hidden potentials in teachers as facilitators or even leaders. The drawback about rural teacher education is that it doesn't care much about bringing out leaders and rural teachers who may well be skilled enough to lead, supervise, inspire, and guide. Ladies and gentlemen, that being said, it's the end of my presentation. And you're free to reach out to me anytime, either through email or social media for future collaboration. I'm open for discussion, analysis, research, and cooperation. Thank you very much. With you, I was Feruz Akbarov from Uzbekistan, an international TESOL instructor, the founder of ETA Uzbekistan, international public speaker, and teacher trainer. Thank you very much.